Hi, Charlie here. When you walk through your city or town, you'll go past many things which are designed to do one thing: control you and everyone else's behavior. Many don't realize that every single detail of cities is designed to manipulate you. Some of these tricks are mind-blowingly smart, and others are just plain mean. Empty cop cars. In towns and cities, you walk and drive past police cars all the time. But have you ever looked inside and seen no one in them? You may have assumed that the authorities simply parked up and walked out, but that's not the case. Empty cop cars are left all around cities on purpose, and this is for many reasons. First off, it gives people a sense of security, making them think there's cops around to help them out. But it also deters any criminals who may be in the area. They will assume cops may be around, even if they're not. It also makes people slow down when driving. 90% of drivers say they slow down the moment they see a cop car. This is the case if they're going over the speed limit or under it. These cop cars are often parked up on busy city roads, and they'll also sometimes be parked in parking lots. That's because around 60% of carjackings take place in parking lots. But if you sat and watched these cop cars for a day, you'll see no one ever comes and moves them. It's just to make you think that Big Brother is always watching. Rocks under bridges. You may have noticed this before, but never thought about why they're there. But if you go under most bridges, there are rocks. Sometimes these are more natural boulders, and sometimes cities don't even bother to try and hide it. Take this bridge in Guangzhou, China. The spikes are there to make sure no homeless residents sleep under the bridge. Now, that's in China, but some countries do pretend to be nice. Many think the uneven boulders under this bridge in Calgary, Canada are for decoration. But no, the sinister undertone is to make sure homeless people do not sleep there. This is known as defensive architecture, but many see it as offensive. But what do you think? Is it good that they do this, or is it mean to homeless people? Cities justify this by saying that if they don't do it, the underside of bridges turns into a homeless camp. But on the other hand, they've got to sleep somewhere. Camera signs. If you walk in many places in the city, you'll see signs like this. They'll say warning, 24-hour video surveillance in use. These scary red and yellow signs really stand out. But did you know that a lot of the time they're totally bogus? You may have thought, why put up signs when you could just put the camera up? Well, it's because cameras are expensive, but signs aren't. These signs are basically scarecrows for criminals. There may not be any security cameras, but putting a sign up will make people think that they're being watched. In some parts of the UK, they even put up these creepy signs that say, "Smile, you're on CCTV." But as Big Brother and creepy as these signs are, a lot of the time there is no CCTV in the area. But these are effective. According to one study, crime decreased 12% in the experimental areas with these signs. Bench armrests. Ever wondered why there seems to be so many armrests on benches? Sometimes there are so many that heavyset people don't even fit on the bench. Well, all of those armrests have nothing to do with comfort. Instead, they're put there to make sure homeless people don't sleep on the benches. Some critics say that young homeless people are often the most targeted by these. Some benches are also formed in unusual shapes. For example, the Camden bench, which launched in Camden, UK and is now used around the world. It may look like a pharaoh's tomb, but all of these slants are to make sure that homeless people don't sleep on the bench. On one hand, I can see how people sleeping on the benches all the time would be an issue. But are these designs really the best way to solve the issue? Maybe they could put some of the money to make these into actually helping the homeless. Floor spikes. You've probably seen these triangular spikes in cities before, but you may have thought nothing of it. Or maybe you assumed it's some kind of trendy arty thing. But no, these are to keep people moving and make sure no one takes a nap outside certain buildings. It seems cities really do not like people taking naps outside. Interestingly, you'll never see these spikes in Japan because it's commonplace to take a nap on the sidewalk. But in other major cities around the world, these spikes are to deter rough sleepers. Many businesses have been criticized for putting these outside their buildings. Designers also use spikes for other things. You may have never noticed these metal spikes and this small ramp before, but it's actually known as an anti-pee-pee. This basically stops anyone from taking a pee on the side of the road. That is, unless they wanted to splash right back at them. A few years back, outside an apartment building, one homeless man saw some spikes where he would usually sleep. He began protesting and got all of the building's tenants to protest with him, and eventually the spikes were removed. But there's still thousands of these in every city around the world. Fake CCTV. We've already covered how some security camera signs are fake, but how many of the actual cameras you see are fake? In 2002, the NYPD placed 200 fake cameras all around the city. This made people question which ones were real and which ones were fake. That's right, many of these security cameras you see are total decoys. However, they do the trick. Much like the empty cop cars, these simply make people think they're being watched. A lot of these look very convincing and people have now begun buying them for their homes. But what do you think? Is this a good idea or is it too Big Brother for you? Skate stoppers. If there's one thing cities dislike even more than homeless people, it's skaters. Unless you skateboard, you may never have noticed this. But skateboarders are directly targeted by cities. Metal studs are placed on poles and benches, called skate stoppers. If a skater went over one of these skate stoppers, they would fly off their board and be injured too. The first city to do this was the skater capital of the world, San Francisco. But since then, the world has caught on and started doing the same thing. Road signs. If you're not skeptical of cities by now, I don't know what's wrong with you. It's pretty clear that you shouldn't believe every sign you see on the road. For example, warning of red light cameras are sometimes just that, warnings. There's no backing to their claims because there are no red light cameras. But I guess this is a pretty useful white lie if they prevent accidents. At the same time, there's also sometimes speed camera signs. But sometimes there's no real speed camera to back this up and the sign is simply a warning. Standing benches. You may think benches are for sitting, but if you think that, then you haven't been to enough cities. A design called the half bench has been getting popular in many towns and cities. This is basically a leaning bench that you can't even sit on. Again, this is to prevent homeless people sleeping on the benches. But I think this is going a little bit overboard. You'll start seeing more and more of these half benches outside things like bus stops. And some McDonald's outlets have even begun putting these in their restaurants. This is so that people don't loiter around when they're waiting for their food. Fake cop cars. Picture this, you're speeding down the road having a great drive. But then out of the corner of your eye you see a cop car far away. You instantly slow down and mind your P's and Q's. But as you drive past it, you realize this is a fake 2D cop car. It sounds like a joke, but this is reality. These were apparently put up by the Taylorville Police Department in the USA. Some say it's a good idea because it gets people to slow down, and it also saves money because you don't need to pay the cops to sit there all day. But of course, this only works once, as you'd have to be pretty dumb to fall for this over and over again. Trash can openings. You may think that it's a design flaw that trash cans have such small openings. But this is done totally on purpose to make sure you only throw away small items. This means you can't dump a bunch of trash from home in a public trash can. Some criticize this, saying that this leads to fly tipping. But what do you think about this subtly manipulating design? Mall escalators. Okay, this one takes place in the malls of towns and cities. Have you ever noticed that malls' up and down escalators are found at totally different parts of the floor? This is not thanks to bad design. The layout is intentional to make shoppers walk past as many stores as possible. This will boost the city's GDP and make them a lot of money. Smoking signs. This one is high tech, but it's soon coming to a city near you. One Swedish company has made an interactive sign which stops people smoking. If you smoke near it, it will sense that smoke, and then the sign will begin coughing and wheezing. This is kind of a creepy Prussia sign, but some say it's a good thing because it will stop people from smoking near other people. The sign was created by a company named Apoteket. This is one of the largest pharmacies in Sweden, and their goal was to sell kits to help people stop smoking. The question is, do you think these signs are a good thing? Some say it would have no impact on them, and when they filmed people's reactions, many seemed to simply laugh. Disguises. So we already know that cities try and trick you and control your behavior, but sometimes they're not so obvious about it. A lot of the time, defensive architecture is disguised as something good. For example, this anti-homeless bench was disguised as a wheelchair-friendly area. Of course, this makes no sense because a wheelchair could just go on the side of the bench. Also, sometimes these tricks are disguised as clever adverts. For example, this bench is branded as a Nike Run bench. The joke is that you can't sit down, but really this is anti-homeless. Sometimes nice things you see in cities are really covering something up. For example, have you ever seen one of those fountains that comes out of the ground? Sometimes they're put there to stop protests happening. This recently happened in Granary Square, London. But now it's time to make your voice heard. Comment below which sneaky thing cities do to control you is the most interesting. If you want some more amazing videos, then check out my second channel. But as always, thanks for watching. There are some more videos on screen right now. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and if you haven't already, what are you waiting for? Subscribe to Top 10s.